Stoic philosophy has always emphasized the distinction between what lies within our control and what does not. Yet modern society trains us to become tireless pursuers. We chase success, recognition, and the feeling that we are valuable. Few ever teach us when to stop. I have witnessed many people burn themselves out while pursuing happiness as a future goal, all the while losing the capacity to be the moment before them. I once asked, why joy fade after fulfilled? The answer came with the realization that pursuit never ends unless one knows how to stop. True wisdom does not lie in obtaining more, but in recognizing that the present moment is already sufficient for our full existence. To those who feel constantly left behind, always running faster, just to avoid falling back, I invite you to pause just once. Not to give up, but to ask what you are running for and whether it is truly necessary. The more you need approval, the further you drift from yourself. In a world of social media where every like and every compliment can become a measure of self-worth, this sentence stands as a mirror reflecting our deepest insecurities. Stoicism reminds us that freedom begins when we no longer depend on what lies outside our will. The approval of others, however sweet it may feel, always remains beyond our control. I once lived in anticipation of other people's validation. I wrote not to express truth, but to be praised. I spoke not to speak honestly, but to be liked. And in that process, I gradually lost my inner voice. When a person needs too much approval, they unconsciously adjust themselves to fit the expectations of others. The price they pay is distance from their own self. To those who feel empty, despite being loved by many, I want you to know that the problem may not be that you have not been recognized enough, but that you have forgotten how to recognize yourself. Let go of urgency. What belongs to you will arrive in its time. I consider this one of the gentlest statements, especially for souls panicked by the feeling of being out of sync with life. Society teaches us that if we fail to achieve certain things by a certain age, we have failed altogether. Yet nature has never operated according to human schedules. Stoicism taught me patience with what I cannot control, and Lao Tzu taught me trust in timing. I once rushed every decision, fearing that if I slowed down, opportunities would slip away. But the more hurried I became, the more mistakes I made. Only when I learned to let go of urgency did I begin to make wiser choices. To those who worry that they are moving more slowly than others, remember that life is not a mass race. What truly belongs to you will not miss you. It is simply arriving at the moment when you are mature enough to receive it. In letting go, you return to peace. Peace is not something we add to life. It is something we return to when we release unnecessary burdens. Stoicism does not promise a life without suffering, but it does promise a life not enslaved by suffering. Lao Tzu shows that the shortest path to such freedom is letting go. I have seen people carry regret and remorse like heavy suitcases throughout their lives. They believe that if they let go, they will lose something. In truth, they are only prolonging their own pain. Letting go does not erase memory, but it frees us from living perpetually within it. To those held tightly by the past, I want to say this: peace does not lie in how the past might have been different, but in how you allow yourself to move forward now. This first group of ideas, to me, forms the foundation of all transformation. No one can overcome hardship while still carrying false images of the self. Endless pursuits, dependence on the gaze of others, blind urgency, and the fear of letting go. When we dare to release these things, we do not lose ourselves. For the first time, we truly meet ourselves. If you are in a dark season of life, begin not by trying to change the world, but by gently setting down what no longer serves your living. In that moment, you will understand why the ancient sages, though they lived in far harsher times than ours, were still able to remain at ease. They knew that the path back to oneself always begins with the simplest, yet most profound act: letting go. To flow with the current of life, or in Lao Tzu's language, to follow the Tao. If the first section taught me how to release inner burdens, then this second section teaches me how to walk through life after letting go, not through force, but through harmony. Peace comes not from controlling life, but from flowing with it. Through many years of studying Stoic philosophy, I was taught to focus only on what lies within my control. Yet modern people often misunderstand this teaching and turn it into an attempt to control even what cannot be controlled. We want to control outcomes, control others, control the future, and even control our own emotions. It is precisely in this effort that we lose the peace we are seeking. I was once such a person. I planned everything, and when life failed to follow the map I had drawn, I became angry, disappointed, blaming myself or blaming the world. Only when I understood that life is not a machine to be operated, but a river to be listened to, did I begin to feel lightness. To those who are exhausted from trying to control everything, I want to say this peace does not lie in gripping tighter, but in learning to loosen your hold and swim with the current. Let life unfold without resistance, and peace will follow you. Stoicism taught me that suffering arises from resisting what is inevitable. Lao Tzu teaches that it is this very resistance that makes life rougher than it needs to be. When we resist reality, we do not make reality disappear. We only tear our inner world further apart. I have seen many people collapse not because of misfortune itself, but because they could not accept that the misfortune had occurred. They live inside questions such as, "Why me?" or "It shouldn't have been this way," and those questions keep them trapped in suffering. To flow with life does not mean resignation or passivity. It means facing reality directly and saying, "This has happened, and from here, how shall I move forward?" To those facing loss, failure, or collapse, I want you to know that when you stop resisting what cannot be changed, you will have enough strength to change what still can be. He who trusts the flow of life is never truly lost. In the most uncertain moments of my life, I felt as though I were walking through fog, no path in sight, no destination visible. Stoic philosophy advised me to hold fast to virtue and right action, even when outcomes were unclear. Lao Tzu adds to this a gentle trust that the flow of life carries its own intelligence. Trusting the flow does not mean abandoning oneself to fate. It means trusting that even painful turns are leading us somewhere. I have passed through periods that seemed meaningless only to realize years later that they had forged the person capable of standing firm today. To those who feel they do not know where they are going, I want to say that you do not need to see the entire road. Sometimes all you need is trust that each sincere step is leading you exactly where you need to be. When you stop resisting change, change becomes gentle. Nothing causes human beings more suffering than change, whether in work, in relationships, or within themselves. We often view change as a threat, an intrusion into the fragile safety zones we construct. Stoicism taught me that all things are impermanent, and wisdom lies in accepting this law. Lao Tzu goes further by pointing out that it is our resistance that makes change feel cruel. I once feared change so deeply that I clung to situations that no longer nourished me. I stayed in environments that drained me simply out of fear of the unknown. But when I loosened my grip, when I allowed change to occur without resistance, I realized it was not nearly as violent as I had imagined. To those standing at the threshold of a major turning point, I want to say this change does not come to destroy you. It comes to refine you, to bring you closer to the person you are capable of becoming. Follow the path of least resistance, and life becomes kind. Many misunderstand this sentence and assume it promotes laziness or avoidance. Yet in both Stoic philosophy and Taoism, the path of least resistance is not the path of indulgence, but the path aligned with one's nature, with reality, and with the concrete conditions of life. I have learned that much of human suffering comes from trying to live against oneself. We force ourselves to remain where we do not belong, pursue goals that do not reflect our true values, simply out of fear of being judged as someone who gave up. But when we choose a path aligned with our abilities, our circumstances, and our inner rhythm, life suddenly becomes less harsh. To those who feel their lives are an endless struggle, I invite you to ask whether you are swimming against the current unnecessarily. This second group of ideas taught me that overcoming hardship does not always require rigidity and confrontation. Sometimes the greatest strength lies in softness, in listening, and in trust. When we stop seeing life as an enemy to be conquered and begin to see it as a current to be understood, we do not merely survive, we learn how to live more deeply and more gently. To those caught in the midst of life's storms, I want to offer a faith distilled from both Lao Tzu and the Stoics. You do not need to fight every wave to prove your strength. Sometimes knowing when to let yourself float allows the current to carry you far beyond what sheer force alone could ever achieve. The softer you become, the stronger your spirit grows. When I was younger, I believed that to survive and rise above, I had to become hard, closed off, and unreachable, never allowing anyone to touch my vulnerable parts. I learned to endure, learned to hide my wounds, and called that strength. Yet over time, I realized that prolonged hardness did not make me stronger. It only made me numb. Stoic philosophy never encourages emotional paralysis. On the contrary, it taught me to distinguish between being ruled by emotions and allowing emotions to exist without letting them govern my actions. Lao Tzu points out that when we allow ourselves to soften, when we stop building unnecessary defensive walls, our spirit becomes more flexible and more resilient. To those who are exhausted from always having to appear strong, I want to say this: you are not weak when you soften. You are simply giving yourself the chance to heal and to grow. Water teaches us that gentleness can overcome even the hardest stone. Water does not compete with stone, does not confront it head-on, does not try to prove its strength. It simply flows with persistence, and it is precisely this gentleness that wears down what once seemed impenetrable. In Stoicism, I learned the lesson of perseverance in virtue. In Taoism, I learned the lesson of perseverance through alignment. I once tried to resolve life's conflicts through confrontation argument and the need to prove that I was right. The result was often fractured relationships and an exhausted inner world. Only when I learned to be like water, to listen more, to be more patient, and to react less, did I realize that many from drying out, from becoming a rigid and bitter version of myself. If you are in a season where life keeps striking you again and again, try learning to be like water. Do not ask how to become harder. Ask how to become more flexible. For it is within that softness that you will discover a quiet strength, enduring, resilient, and deeper than any form of hardness the world has ever praised. Those who know how to be content already possess everything. When I was younger, I once thought this sentence was merely a consolation offered to those who had failed to obtain what they wanted. I believed that if I tried hard enough, I would eventually reach a day when everything would finally satisfy me. But as the years passed, I came to see that contentment never comes from having more. It comes from learning how to stop. Stoic philosophy taught me that true wealth lies in wanting less, not in owning more. Lao Tzu goes straight to the essence when he says that the one who knows contentment already has everything. I once attained things I believed would make me happy, only to discover that the sense of lack remained unchanged. To those who feel they are always chasing yet never arriving, I want to say that perhaps the problem is not that you do not have enough, but that you have never paused long enough to realize how much you already have. When nothing is lacking within you, the outside world loses its power over you. This is a sentence I have carried with me for many years as a stern yet liberating reminder. When we feel an inner lack, we try to fill it with approval, possessions, achievements, or love from others. And in that very process, we hand our power over to the outside world. Stoic philosophy emphasizes that no one can harm us unless we allow them to touch our inner judgments. Lao Tzu adds that when the inner world is not deficient, external circumstances lose their ability to us. I once lived in fear of rejection, judgment, and abandonment because I believed my worth resided in the reactions of others. Only when I began to build a sense of sufficiency from within by living in alignment with my values did the world gradually lose that power. To those who feel overly controlled by circumstances or by other people, I want you to know that freedom begins within, not with changing the world. The one who knows when enough is enough will always have enough. In modern life, very few people teach us when to stop. We are encouraged to keep climbing higher, earning more, and achieving further, even when the cost is our health, our relationships, and our peace of mind. Stoicism calls this a confusion between means and ends. Lao Tzu points out that the one who knows when to stop is the one who is never truly lacking. I have gone through periods when I did not know what enough meant. I overworked set expectations beyond my capacity and called it ambition. The result was not sustainable, but exhaustion. Only when I learned to recognize the proper stopping point did I begin to build a more stable and enduring life. To those caught in the endless cycle of pressure and expectation, I want to say this: stopping is not failure. Stopping at the right time is a form of wisdom. True freedom is wanting little and trusting much. Freedom and common understanding is often associated with having more choices, more power, and greater control. Yet both Stoic philosophy and Lao Tzu approach freedom from the opposite direction. Freedom does not arise from endlessly expanding desire, but from narrowing it. I once believed that if I had everything I wanted, I would be free. But the more I wanted, the more I was bound by the fear of losing. When I began to want less and to trust more in life, in myself, and in the unfolding of events, I felt a distinct lightness. To those who feel trapped by their own desires, I invite you to release a few unnecessary wants. You may be surprised to find that you feel freer rather than deprived. Those who live simply are hardest to disturb. For many years, I believed that to remain undisturbed, one had to build strong walls around oneself. Yet the more we accumulate, the more easily our lives are shaken. The more attachments we have, the more there is to lose, and the more anxious we become. Stoic philosophy advises living in accordance with nature, not chasing luxuries for a good life. Lao Tzu teaches that simplicity itself is the strongest armor. I have seen people who live very simply, yet possess minds as steady as mountains, and I have seen those who have everything yet, whose hearts are constantly unsettled. To those who feel their lives are too noisy, too complicated, and too exhausting, I want to say that sometimes the path back to peace lies not in adding more, but in subtracting. This fourth group of ideas taught me that overcoming hardship does not necessarily begin with changing circumstances, but with changing our relationship to desire and lack. When we know contentment, the world can no longer make us poor. When we live simply, upheaval no longer knocks us down so easily. And when we build sufficiency from within, we walk through life with a freedom that no circumstance can take away. If you feel pressured to have more and to become more, I invite you to pause and ask yourself how much you truly need to live a meaningful life. The answer may lead you closer to the peace you have long sought in places where it never truly resided. Through many years of studying Stoic philosophy, I came to realize that wisdom does not arise from knowing more, but from seeing more clearly. And to see clearly, one must learn how to become still. Silence is a source of great strength when the world becomes too loud. I once believed that strength came from quick reactions, timely speech, and the clear expression of one's views. Yet the longer I live, the more I see that much of my suffering has come from hurried reactions, unnecessary words, and thoughts that had not yet settled. When the world becomes too loud, both externally and internally, silence is no longer avoidance but a necessary refuge. Stoic philosophy taught me that I do not have to respond to every stimulus. I have the right to choose the pause between impression and response. Lao Tzu reminds me that it is precisely within that silence that true strength is gathered. I have lived through periods when life pushed relentlessly, information, expectations, and pressures crashing down without pause. Only when I allowed myself to be silent, to stop arguing, explaining, or justifying myself to the world, did I feel a steady source of energy return. To those exhausted, always having to respond themselves. I want to say this: sometimes silence does not make you weaker. It is helping you recover. A calm heart sees clearly even in chaos. Chaos is not only found in major upheavals, but also in the quiet turmoil of the human mind. I was in a state where my thoughts were constantly filled with speculation and worst case. I believed I was prepared for possibility, but in truth, I was only blinding myself to reality. Stoic philosophy taught me that I do not need to control the future in order to live rightly in the present. Lao Tzu says that a tranquil heart can see what a panicked mind will. I have seen people in very difficult circumstances make clear and wise decisions, not because they were more intelligent, but because they remained calm. To those caught in confusion and unsure which direction to take, I want you to understand it does not come from thinking more, but from caves within. The present moment asks nothing but your presence. For many years, I lived as though my life existed in the future. I believed that only after achieving this or overcoming that I truly began. In doing so, I missed countless moments that could have nourished me. Stoic philosophy emphasizes attention to the present as the foundation of an ethical life. Lao Tzu speaks more gently, saying that the present moment demands no effort, no achievement, only wholehearted presence. I once sat beside those I loved while elsewhere occupied the future matters. To be present, did I realize that many precious things had been there all along, simply waiting for me to return. To those who feel life passing too quickly and leaving emptiness behind, I invite you to return to this moment. You may find more than you expect. Do not force clarity. Stillness will reveal it. In moments of impasse, my natural reflex was to think harder, to force an answer, to compel understanding and decision. Yet the more I forced it, the more obscure everything became. Stoic philosophy taught me every problem needs to be resolved immediately. Lao Tzu teaches that clarity cannot be coerced. It emerges only when the mind is sufficiently quiet. I have made many poor decisions simply because I could not tolerate uncertainty. I wanted quick answers to end my unease. Over time, I came to see that uncertainty is not an enemy, but a necessary phase before wisdom appears. To those who feel lost and unable to see the way forward, I want to say this: you do not need to understand everything right now. Allow yourself to become still. When the mind settles, what needs to be seen will reveal itself. When the mind rests, the heart knows the way. In a world that prizes reason, analysis, and calculation, we often forget that there is another form of human wisdom, quieter, yet no less accurate. Stoic philosophy does not reject reason, but insists that reason should serve the good life, not exhaust us. Lao Tzu says that when the mind stops agitating, the heart naturally knows the direction. I have lived through times when I analyzed every possibility to the point of paralysis. I feared mistakes, loss, and consequences. Only when I allowed my mind to rest, when I stopped trying to control everything, did I hear a deeper voice within. To those standing before difficult choices with a mind in turmoil, I want to say this: you are not lacking wisdom. Perhaps you are simply too tired to hear it. This fifth group of ideas taught me that wisdom is not something to be chased, but something that appears when we create enough space for it. In stillness, we recover. In presence, we live fully. And in the quiet of the mind, the path becomes clear without force. If you are in a season when life feels too loud, too fast, and too heavy, I invite you to pause for a moment. Not to give up, but to listen. For it may be that what you are seeking is not ahead of you at all, but waiting for you in this very moment, where silence, presence, and wisdom meet. Do less, and what truly matters will naturally be done. When I first encountered this idea, I resisted it. I grew up in a world that glorifies busyness, where doing more equals greater worth and rest is seen as laziness. I believed that if I did not do enough, I would be left behind. Yet the more I did, the more scattered, exhausted, and disconnected from what truly mattered I became. Stoic philosophy taught me to act with intention, not to waste energy on matters that do not belong to my duty. Lao Tzu goes further by saying that doing less is not irresponsibility, but right action. When we stop draining our energy on what is not essential, what truly matters naturally finds space to unfold. I once reduced unnecessary commitments, futile arguments, and efforts to prove myself, and strangely enough, my life did not collapse. It became clearer. To those who are worn out from doing too much, I want to say this: perhaps you do not need more effort, but fewer unnecessary things. Stop striving to shine, and you will naturally glow. For a long time, I tried to stand out. I wanted to be seen, to be recognized, to be considered special. But the harder I tried to shine, the more artificial and tired I felt. Light that is forced is always harsh and short-lived. Stoicism taught me that worth lies in character, not in... Lao Tzu teaches that when we live in accordance with our nature, radiance arises as a natural consequence without effort. I have met very ordinary people who never tried to impress, yet whose presence made others feel at ease and trusting. To those exhausted by having to perform and compete, I want to say this: you do not need to strive to be brilliant. live rightly, and the light will come on its own. Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. This is a sentence I often recall whenever I feel I am falling behind the world. Nature has no concept of deadlines. Spring does not arrive earlier because of pressure, nor does winter shorten itself out of human anxiety. And yet everything is completed in its time. Stoic philosophy taught me patience with what lies beyond my control. Lao Tzu gave me a living image through which to trust the natural process. I once reproached myself for failing to reach the milestones set by society. Over time, I realized that each person moves according to their own rhythm. To those who feel they are moving slowly, I want to say, this slow does not mean wrong. If you are still walking, you are still arriving. To be empty is not to be lacking, but to be open. For many years, I feared emptiness. I feared the quiet spaces in life, unclear phases, and the feeling of having nothing firmly in hand. I believed emptiness meant failure. Yet both Lao Tzu and the Stoic sages understood that emptiness is precisely what allows something new to appear. Stoic philosophy taught me not to cling to outcomes. Lao Tzu teaches that a vessel is valuable because of the space within it. I have lived through periods that felt directionless, without title, without visible achievement. Yet, it was within those empty spaces that I restructured my values. To those who feel their lives are hollow, I invite you to consider that perhaps you are not lacking, but opening yourself to something deeper. When you stop trying to improve the world, you begin to live in harmony with it. This is not a call to indifference or resignation, but a warning to the ego that always wants to fix everything according to its own will. I once believed that if I did not try to change the world, I would become useless. Yet the more I tried to fix it, the more exhausted and dissatisfied I became. Stoicism taught me to improve myself before judging the world. Lao Tzu teaches that when we stop opposing reality, we begin to live in harmony with it. I realized that many conflicts in my life arose from wanting everything to be different according to my preferences, other than learning to live wisely within the conditions at hand. To those who feel burdened by the responsibility of having to change everything, I want to say this: you do not need to brace yourself against the entire world to live a meaningful life. Sometimes living rightly, living gently, and living with awareness is already a contribution great enough. This sixth group of ideas taught me the art of living lightly, without becoming shallow, of letting go, without abandoning, of doing less, while remaining whole. Wu Wei is not doing nothing. It is not acting against one's own nature or against the nature of life itself. When we stop forcing, energy no longer leaks away. When we stop proving ourselves, value reveals itself naturally. And when we live in accord with nature, life ceases to be a battle and becomes a companionship. If you are at the end of a long road of exhaustion, doubt, and struggle, I want to say this: perhaps you do not need more strategies, more effort, or more control. Perhaps what you need most right now is to step aside, listen to the rhythm of life, and allow what truly belongs to you to unfold in the most natural way. In that moment, you will understand why the ancient sages were able to live simply, quietly, and profoundly, not because they knew less than we do, but because they had stopped resisting what was already sustaining them each day. Letting go isn't about losing. It's about clearing space for what truly belongs to you to take root. Remember, you don't have to be perfect to be worthy, and you don't have to hurry to reach where you belong. If you feel even a little lighter today, that is a beautiful beginning. Share in the comments one thing you've decided to set down today. I would love to hear about your journey. If this resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to join our community on this path toward peace. Thank you for being here. May you find peace within yourself today. Until next time.